Very good afternoon, everyone. I hope that all of you are doing well, and at the same time, you're taking a good care of yourself. Uh, I do understand that CIN628 for summer 2021 and 2022 is coming to an end, and this is the very final week for the summer session. Moreover, we have 2 days, today and tomorrow. Thus, uh, as planned, yep, what we're going to do is we will carry out the summary of the course that was undertaken during the summer period, and we'll do it in today's class. Moreover, in tomorrow's class, we will be definitely looking at some revision questions. So I have some revision questions assigned for tomorrow's class, and definitely we'll have a good and a keen look at those questions in tomorrow's class. Now, for today, just before I share the screen, should you have any questions or queries, please feel free to drop me an email. You're most welcome to drop me a message on Viber even. I've seen a lot of you have queries, you have some questions, you have some doubts, you have some grievances. Please, I'm most welcome to hear you out, and where possible, I will try my best to help you out in any possible way. Now, there are a few things. First of all, is that your coursework is out. That amount of work that you've done so far, I've seen on the Moodle shell, is there already. And some of you do not have any marks in it. It's just because you have not submitted your assessments, you have not attempted the mid-semester or the mid-summer exam, as they call it. Okay, so try your best. Okay, try your best to submit few things from there. Okay, if you are one of those who have not attempted your midsummer exam, drop me an email, or you can also drop an email to Miss Anupriya Narayan, and then we'll see what we can do about your midsummer exam. However, your project one, please, if you haven't submitted, do try your best to submit it. I've talked to the HOD in the morning, so he has permitted me to let you know that yes, we can still accept your submissions for project one. However, there would be a bit of deductions to it, just to be fair on those who have done the project one on time. So, and those of you who have good marks for your coursework, kudos on you. You have done very well. Keep up with the good work. And you have just one more assessment before the final exam, which is your major project. We'll talk more about it as soon as we get to the lecture slides. Now, should you have any questions or queries, like I mentioned, drop me an email, or you can drop me a message on Moodle, or three, you can always send me a message on Viber. I am most happy to accommodate in any of those three means. And for tomorrow's class, the final class, like I've said, it's a revision class. So tomorrow's class, I will be hosting the class from 4 till 6 p.m. So 4 p.m. in the evening till 6 p.m. Now, why 4 to 6 p.m. and not the usual time, 9 to 12 p.m.? It's just that we have some working students in our class, so we'll try to accommodate them as much as possible. So 4 to 6 p.m. It will be a Zoom-based class, and I suppose the link is already up on Moodle together with the password. So please do try to log into Zoom from 4 to 6 p.m. tomorrow, and we will be working on the revision question. Now, just in case if there's a power failure, I am in Namaka campus today, so it seems good. Okay, the power didn't fluctuate much, but we do not have much of network access in the campus. It's just because due to power fluctuations, the university and the campus together, they have thought not to risk on the networking equipments. So the network is off rather at the moment. So never mind, we'll try our best to conduct the class as much as properly as possible. And for tomorrow's situation, even if there is a power failure or not, I'll ensure to have my device charged up for the evening. So 4 to 6 p.m. I'll see you then face-to-face via Zoom, and we can carry out discussions as possible. All right, everyone. So I'll share the screen very, very quickly. Now, when I share the screen, I'll switch to the video so that it does not clog with the network. All right. So this is the summary that I have for the course so far. So CIN628, Internet and Web Programming, generally it is a very interesting course altogether. I find it very interesting. It is one of the courses that I generally teach in Mathumwa campus. Since it's offered in summer, the course has been shortened down to meet the needs of the students, okay? Now, reminders, your major project, okay? So in your major project, you were supposed to develop a fully functional dynamic website. I had a good look at the question. Seems good, seems interesting. So you might have to do a bit of research work to actually get this done. So try your best to get this done as soon as possible. It carries a total of 100 marks and contributes 15% towards the coursework. And the deadline is on the 21st of January, 2022. The time is also given in the major project assignment question. The second reminder is project one submission. Now you are still allowed to submit your project like I've mentioned. However, there will be a bit of deductions. Okay, so the deduction rate, we have not thought of the deduction rate yet. We'll decide on the deduction rate. It won't be too much. Okay, we're trying our best to help you out because it's a difficult situation at the moment with COVID-19, and then with the cyclone warnings, with the flood, with the electricity and everything. Okay, so I don't think it will be too much of deductions, just to give those students a fair ordeal in terms of those who have done the assessments on time and submitted on or before time. Okay, so those of you submit late, let's say sometimes next week, okay, try your best to submit it before the end of the final exam. So final exam finishes next week Friday. Okay, so try to submit it before next week Friday, and then we'll mark it up. All right, now more reminders. Prepare for your online final examination. Your online final examination is scheduled for week 6 from the 17th of January to the 21st of Jan. So 17th is next week Monday, 21st is next week Friday. So you will be given a total of 1 week to go and attempt your final exam. Now it is an online model-based examination. It again carries 100 marks towards the final examination in 50% towards your coursework contribution. So 50% from the normal coursework which you have and 50% from the final exam. Now altogether, there are 3 segments in your final online final examination. Segment 1, you have multiple choice and combination of true or false questions worth 30 marks. Now there's a time limitation with it. Okay, so what it simply means is you'll be given 1 week. So anytime from next week Monday to next week Friday, you can choose a specific 1 hour to go and attempt segment 1 and also segment 2 as well. There are time limits with it. I think for segment 1, I'm not so sure at the moment what is the exact time that Madam Anupriya has set up at the moment, but I will definitely go and have a relook at it. But I think multiple choice and true and false will be 1 hour. So 30 questions, you'll be given 1 hour, 2 minutes per question, true or false, and multiple choice based questions, and carries 30 marks. Segment 2 is a combination of short answer questions and true or false again. Now it carries 30 marks as well, and it has a time limitation. So anytime within the week, you take out the specific time and try to attempt your segment 2 and segment 1 as well. Now here's a catch. You're only given 1 attempt for segment 1 and segment 2. Should you fail to attempt the segments 1 and 2 within that 1 attempt, you will not be provided with another attempt. Just in case if there are network issues and so forth, we have ways in which we figure out whether you actually have network issues or not. So we will check it out, and then we will try our best to give you another time or opportunity. If not, okay, you're only given 1 attempt. Now, segment 3 is programming based question. It has a combination of CSS, HTML, PHP, and MySQL, and carries 40 marks towards your 100 marks of final examination. Now, this is going to be assignment based. Now, generally, do know this. How do you go around doing assignments? You can research up on the web. You can go and take time You're given 1 week, 5 days to actually go and get your questions attempted within that time frame. Now, do note this. Even though you are given the liberty to go and research on the web, please do not direct copy and paste. Now, since it's programming, your copy and pasting wouldn't work in this case. Why? Because each and every one's program is going to be slightly different from one another. Okay, so also if you're thinking of getting this done in groups, no, there's no group work. It's supposed to be done individually. Now there's a plagiarism checker also set for segment 3, and the minimum plagiarism rate that you're allowed is 20%. Okay, so if you go beyond 20%, marks will be deducted accordingly. Now also do note, sometimes you may not plagiarize and your plagiarism checker may go beyond 20%. Now don't worry about it. It does not necessarily mean that if you have not copied, you've got 30% plagiarism rate, still your marks will be deducted. No, it's not going to be like that. Okay, the person who is going to mark the assessment, he or she is going to mark at his or her discretion. We have a plagiarism report that shows up, so we'll carefully assess the report and make evaluations whether you have actually copied from the web or if you have copied from any other particular assessment. All right, so that's on your final exam. 100 marks, 50%, 3 segments, 1, 2, 3. Segment 1, 30 marks, multiple choice with a combination of true or false, has a time limitation. Segment 2, short answer questions with a combination of true or false, 30 marks, has a time limitation as well. Segment 3 is programming based questions, mostly HTML, CSS, PHP, and MySQL, total of 40 marks, and it's assignment based. Please ensure that you are not plagiarizing. So 30 plus 30 is 60, 60 plus 40 gives you a mark of 100. Now, next up, we will go and summarize all the things that you've learned in week 1. Now, just by looking at your Moodle shell, okay, by the way, the summary that I'm making is basically from the Moodle shell. Whatever you have learned from week 1 till week 4. Now, week 5, Ajax is not covered in the final exam. It was just a supplementary session in yesterday's class, okay? So week 5 is not tested from week 1 till week 4. So from week 1, you have HTML, XHTML, and CSS. So if you look at HTML, now what you should understand and what you should know is how HTML works and understand the basics of HTML, because HTML itself is very, very basic. Okay, if you learn the very basics of HTML and if you're able to interpret and think things out, it should make your work easier. Now from there, or from HTML, you should know that HTML builds the basic structure of a web page, and the output that you get is generally on a browser, a web browser. Now, just in case if you do not know what a web browser is, Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Firefox, Opera, Safari if you're using Mac. Okay, so these are the different types of web browsers. Also know the HTML skeleton. Now, HTML skeleton is also called as HTML structure. Now, if you're not able to recall this, let me just make you imagine. Now, remember when you are coding HTML, so you start with opening HTML tag, and at the very end, you have a closing HTML tag. Now, within that, you have opening and closing head tags and opening and closing body tags. Now, that is the structure or the HTML skeleton. All right. Now, with HTML, you should also know what are tags and attributes. We'll be looking at some of the tags and attributes in the next slide. Next up, you had gone over XHTML. Now, XHTML is evolved from HTML, or it is an extension to HTML, but it is a stricter version of HTML. Now, XHTML is more structured and more disciplined. Why more structured and more disciplined? It does not allow room for much errors. HTML would allow you some room for errors. For example, if you are inserting a bold tag, that means B, opening and closing B tag. So if you use uppercase B in the opening tag and lowercase b in the closing bold tag, so HTML would accommodate that. XHTML does not accommodate all those things. Okay, so more stricter version. and that's why it's more structured and more disciplined. Now it has rules. Okay, now HTML, there is no defined set of rules with HTML. However, with XHTML, you have rules. For example, okay, all tags are to be either in uppercase or lowercase. You cannot mix up. Okay, so either in uppercase or lowercase. Also, we should know that another rule there in XHTML is all tags must be enclosed in angle brackets. How you have it for your opening and closing tag, those are the angle brackets. So all tags must be in enclosed angle brackets. Moreover, tags must have a corresponding matching closing tag. Okay, like for example, opening bold tag, closing bold tag, opening H1, closing H1, so corresponding. Now there are some tags which do not have an opening and closing tags. Now those kind of tags are called empty elements. Okay, for example, horizontal line, HR, so you have a bigger than sign, HR, and then a backward slash followed by a, so you have smaller than sign, pardon me, you have a smaller than sign, HR, and then a backward slash followed by a bigger than sign. Okay, so that is called an empty element. You have break tag, line break. Now that also is an empty tag. Now, so whenever you have an empty tag, in that case, you XHTML also will force you to insert a end tag version. For example, what I've just quoted, okay, smaller than sign, HR, and then you have a backslash, and then the bigger than sign. Okay, so if you miss out to that backslash, okay, so XHTML doesn't allow you to miss that. You need to insert that backslash. With HTML, it doesn't really matter. It accommodates either you insert that backslash or not. In XHTML, it is compulsory. All right. Now, XHTML, the last point, I'm looking at the very last point. Let me put in a spotlight marker. Okay, here, the last point, doc type declaration is compulsory. Now, doc type, when you are inserting in your opening HTML tag, now with XHTML, you need to insert in a doc type tag. Now, doc type tag, what it does, it basically tells the developer what kind of coding you are actually inserting. Now, you must be thinking, after all, it's just HTML. Why do I need to insert this? It is very, very important to insert a doc type tag in XHTML because that is one of its rules. Moreover, the person who will be developing the website, okay, let's say if he or she leaves the job, another developer comes in, the next developer will actually see the doc type and quickly determine what type of document you have in there. Either HTML, either XHTML, either XML, or HTML5. Okay, so therefore, doc type declaration is also compulsory in that case. Now, week 1, HTML, XHTML, and CSS continued. So some basic HTML and XHTML tags. You have P tag, which represents paragraph. Now, BR, now this BR version is HTML. If you would have had a XHTML, a backslash would need to be inserted in here. Okay, so BR means a line break, and then you have a bold tag. You have I, which indicates italic. You have U, which indicates underline table to insert in a table. TR is table row. TH is table header, and TD tag means table data. So these are some of the basic HTML and XHTML tags. Now, HTML and XHTML attributes. Now, attributes, basically what they do is they control certain aspect of a tag's action. For instance, you have a HTML tag, H1. Now, your H1 or your heading 1, you want to align it to the left. So you use an attribute, in this case, an align attribute, and use a styling tag of left to ensure that your H1 on heading 1 is aligned to the left hand side of your web page. Okay. Moreover, there are other HTML and XHTML tags, which, for example, you have headings. Now, headings, you have headings 1 to 6, whereby heading 1 is from the largest and heading 6 is to the smallest. You have HR, which represents horizontal line. You have phone tags. You have A tags, which represent links or hyperlinks. You have listings represented by LI tag. Now, you have two types of listings. You have ordered listing 1, 2, 3, ABC, Romans 1, 2, 3, and so forth. And then you have unordered listing. Unordered listing would be in terms of bullets. So bullets are of many types. You have a disk, you have a closed circle, you have an open circle. Closed circle are those bullets circular in size or circular in shape rather, but it's black in color. Open circle, white circles. Okay, you can have squares and so forth, or ticks even. Now, week 1, HTML, XHTML, and CSS continued. So CSS stands for cascading style sheets. Okay, what it does, it styles, formats, and displays HTML elements on a web page. In simple terms, with HTML or XHTML, you set up the structure of your web page. But if you want to style things up on your web page, this is where you end up using CSS. Now, you have 3 types of CSS. You have inline, whereby you try to insert CSS codes within the HTML element. You have internal, whereby you will try to insert the styling codes within the HTML page, basically within the head tags inside style tags. So inside the head tags, normally you will have title. After title, you will insert opening and closing style tags, and in there you will start typing your CSS codes. And then finally, you have external type or external style sheets. This is where you will create a separate CSS file and then link this file to your web page within the head text. All right. Now, CSS syntax, there are 3 types of syntaxes. In CSS, you have a selector, you have a property, and then you have a value. Okay. Now, if you look at this CSS styling code, okay, so the first one that you have, P tag. Now, P tag is a selector. Now, selector, generally, it is a HTML tag. Okay, so P is for paragraph. So then after the paragraph, you have property. Now, your property, that means what do you want to change with the paragraph? So you want to change the color and the value. So you're saying, okay, the property is color. Now, what color? So what is the value? So in this case, red is your value. Let me repeat that. So you have 3 types of syntaxes in CSS syntax. You have a selector, a property, and a value. So in this example, so P is the selector. Generally, selectors, they are HTML tags. Okay, after that, you have an open parenthesis. Okay, so straight after the open parenthesis, you have a property. So what property of the selector or paragraph would I like to change? I would like to change the color. Okay, so property is color followed by a colon, and the value of the property, I'm assigning it to color red, semicolon, and then closing parenthesis. Now there are other properties. In this case, okay, so my selector is P, property is, let's say, align. Align, so my value is going to be left, left or right, or center, or justify, either of it. Common elements in CSS, the very last bullet point in there, you have text align, okay, left, right. So these are the properties, by the way. Okay, so left, right, center, justified. So these are the common types of text alignment. Now, text decoration. So text decoration, generally you have an underline, you have a overline, you have a override, or none. Color, you can assign color either in terms of a normal English or in terms of hash values. So you can use red, blue, green, or hash values, whereby you have hashtag, and then some specific color code. Font family. So what type of font family are you selecting? For example, bandana is a family type. Okay. Now, not generally, you do not need to cram all these things. If you are not able to grasp all these things, now these things are very commonly available on the web. Even a very proficient developer, sometimes he or she would go and need to go and look at the color coding. Now you don't need to cram this. All you can do is go to W3 School's website, and from there, go and look at HTML or CSS colors, and then you'll get the color codes, the hex codes as we call it. Okay. Font family, same thing. Now the font families, they keep on changing depending on how fast the development of HTML and CSS codes are occurring. For example, the current version of HTML we're using is HTML5. The current version of CSS we're using is CSS3. So as soon as we go to from 3 to from 3.2 or 3.1, the font family and the color code might change. Okay, so you need to get yourself well updated with these things. Now, font size, what size? Now, sizes here can be in many different forms. It can be in terms of just, let's say, you'll just put down 12, or you'll put down 15 pixels. Pixels is commonly used with web interfaces, so 15 pixels, or you can have 15 inches, or sometimes you can have 10%. You can use either of it. Now, generally, if you want it to be consistent in different screen types, for example, if you're using a laptop screen, 15:6 screen, if you're using a 13-inch screen, if you're using a 17 point something size screen, now your font size, if you put it at 11, it will vary in different screen sizes. So if you want it to be consistent, it's best to put it down in percentages. Okay. Now, font weight, how thick your font would be. Okay. And then font style. So the different types of font styles that you like to put in. So these are some of the very, very common elements of CSS that are used. Okay, so week one, let's quickly go back. For week one, you looked at HTML. Okay, so you should know what HTML is, and you should know some of the common HTML tags and attributes. Also, do not forget to know the HTML skeleton. Now, XHTML, you should know what XHTML is. Basically, it is an extension of HTML, and it is a stricter version of HTML. And you should know some of the rules, by the way. Okay, so if I've not listed down the rules in this slide, probably you could go back into your lecture notes and have a look at those rules. And also know that doc type declaration is compulsory in XHTML. So these are some of the very common HTML and XHTML tags. I put it here on purpose so that you should try your best to know and learn this. Okay. Now with CSS, you should know what CSS is. Okay. And what does it do? It styles up your HTML elements. Okay. There are 3 types. Know them and know how to use all these 3 types. Now, in week two, you had looked at XHTML and HTML5 again. Now, I will not be covering up XHTML in these few slides. The aftermath slide, the slides from here onwards is just that I've already covered up all that needed to be covered up in the previous few slides. Okay, so we'll directly jump into HTML5. So with HTML5, okay, it is a newer version of HTML. I think I just mentioned it in the previous few slides. Okay, so what it does, it basically, you have a lot of previous versions of HTML, by the way. It started back somewhere in 1996 or 1995, and we are in 2022 at the moment. So what HTML5 does, it collects all the previous versions of it, HTML, also with XHTML, and then forms up HTML5. So after HTML5, you do not need to draw out a distinct factors between XHTML and HTML. Why? Because HTML5 incorporates both of these. Okay. Now it has some common goals. Now the common goals for HTML5 may include, okay, I've not listed it down here, but you might need to know at least 1 or 2. So I will just say out a few of these common goals. Now what it does, it supports existing web pages. That means the web pages that were created before HTML5 came in, okay, it will support it. Moreover, okay, you do not need to go back and revise all the older websites. Now it will work with the latest HTML5. In other words, if you have done a coding of a website using HTML3 and let's say HTML5 comes in, and what you can do is you can mix the code HTML3 and HTML5, it will still work. Okay, with HTML5 you do not need additional plugins. Basically, in fact, you do need some plugins, but what it does, it reduces the need for a lot of plugins. Remember previously, if you want to use YouTube, you might need to go and update your Flash player and so forth. Now, you do not need that in HTML5. The reason being why is because HTML5 allows rendering of web pages in device independent modes. In other words, each device, they will have their own set of capabilities to control HTML5 web pages. So when I say device, I most likely mean the web browsers. Okay. Now HTML5 also improves semantic definition. When you talk about semantic definition, what it does is it means the meaning and the purpose of web page elements and web page as a whole. So with HTML5, it improves semantic definition. Let me repeat what semantic definition is the meaning and the purpose of web page elements and the web page as a whole. Moreover, one of the very common goals of HTML5 is it is able to handle web document errors in a better and in a consistent way. For example, if something is wrong with the web server, it will directly state the error and probably the error code as well. So it has the capability to do that. Previously, you would just have an error, something like that, just saying there's an error with the website. Now it not only gives in the error, it gives you a troubleshooting feature, and sometimes it displays error code as well. Now, new elements in HTML5. Okay, so these are some of the new elements, some of the many new elements. Okay, you have article, you have audio, you have footer, you have header, section, and there are many more. Okay, you have audio, you have video, and so forth. So new features are added in compared to HTML. So there are also some new features that have been added in compared to the previous versions. For example, HTML5 has a built-in audio and video support. Previously didn't. That's why it normally would ask you to go and update the Flash player. Okay, so when there is built-in audio and video support, you do not need to install additional plugins. There's enhanced form and form control. So the forms that you see on the website, okay, are probably forms in the contact page, sign in, sign up, sign in, sign up. So these forms are much more enhanced. How it is enhanced, it has way more capabilities in terms of you can insert in more features. It has drag and drop functionality. It has radio button functionality. Moreover, it incorporates other types of multiple languages, for example, JavaScript, PHP, and so forth. So allows better communication with the database. And finally, another new feature that has been added in that it has advanced features that makes it easy for web developers. Okay, for example, it allows data storage and offline application capabilities. So example, if your web page has been fully loaded in the cache memory of the browser, so what will happen is that the web page would not need to be loaded again and again. So in that case, it makes the work of a web developer very, very easy in terms of handling data. Now, the last point over here, the final output is generally the same as the other versions. What it simply means in this particular point is that when you create a web page in HTML 1.0 or HTML 3.0 or HTML4 or HTML5, generally the output is going to be the same. When you open up the page, if you write down something in, like, let's say within H1 tags, you will still see the text in the same size. The output remains the same, but the back end functionality and the communication procedures is way more enhanced and improved in HTML5. Next up, JavaScript. Now, JavaScript is the world's most popular web programming language. Okay. It is one of the 3 languages that each and every web developer should know. So the first one is HTML, the second one is CSS, and the third one is JavaScript. Okay, Now, JavaScript programs, what it does, it programs the behavior of web pages, and it runs in a web browser. That's why it's web-based. So anything that is web-based is going to run on a web browser. So some of the functionalities as per the class coverage from week 2, I have seen you have covered is it displays time on web page, it creates clicks. Now, create clicks is just like when you click on a specific text on a specific button or on a specific element within the web page, it performs certain functions. Those are called creating clicks. And it allows communication with the servers. Okay, I don't think you have covered that in the class, but just to make things a bit simple and to add on a bit more to it. So JavaScript, it allows communication with the servers. How? Okay, remember yesterday's class, your client server interaction, request and respond, JavaScript can perform those kind of work. So that sums up week 2. So in week 2, you have learned about HTML5. Now that it is the newest version of HTML, again, it incorporates the previous versions of HTML together with XHTML, and it has some common goals. Try to know at least 1 or 2 goals from there. Okay, and some of the new elements include the articles, audio, footer, header section. You have audio, you have video, and so forth. So the new features, okay, you do not need plugins. Okay, moreover, you have enhanced form controls. You have drag and drop functionality. It supports for CSS3 as well, and then advanced features such as data storage and offline applications, which makes the work of web developers very, very easy. And know that the final output is generally the same as the other versions. JavaScript, one of the popular web programming languages. Okay, so it's one of the 3 languages that every web developer need to know. So what JavaScript does, it basically controls the behavior of web pages. Okay, and some of the functionalities there. Okay, display time on a web page, create clicks. Now, just to give you a heads up, do not focus too much on the coding part in JavaScript. Okay, just know the basic JavaScript, because after all, in the final assessment, final online exam layout, I've already stated is HTML, CSS, PHP, and MySQL. So you don't need to wreck your head with JavaScript coding. I hope this helps. Now, week 3, again, you had covered HTML, XML, and forms. Okay, so in HTML, you had covered up selection techniques. Now, selection techniques, that means selection techniques comes in handy when you are styling something. That means the HTML tags, you will be using it as selectors, selectors, remember? Here, selector, he's a selector, right? So the HTML elements you'll be using as selectors, and you'll be assigning some form of styling with using properties and values. So there are 4 ways in which you could do that. Okay, in fact, there are 5 ways. First one is you can directly use the HTML tags, like what we had done earlier with paragraph. Okay, the second one is you can use IDs. So IDs is just like you have multiple paragraphs. So if you want each and every paragraph to be called by a different name, so paragraph tag. So within those 2 are smaller than, bigger than sign. So let's say smaller than sign, and then you have paragraph. ID is equals to give a specific name, and then bigger than sign. So when you are inserting the code or styling it in CSS, so if you would need to call out that particular ID name, so you'll call out using a hashtag. All right. Now it's very similar thing with classes. Let's say you have multiple H1 headings. You want each and every H1 to be different. So H1, you'll insert a class in it. Let's say you call the class 628. All right. So when you're styling it in CSS, so you'll use a period sign, which is represented by a full stop sign. So full stop sign, and then 628, and then start putting in your property and value. So use of IDs and classes. And another way you can use your selection technique is using div tags. So div tag means division. So what division tags does is basically it specifies logical division within a document. If I need to explain this in a very simple way, when you see a website, you have a separate section for banner. So there's a banner. Let's say your website is divided into 3 sections. So in first one, you have some sort of text. Second one, you have some images. And next, the third one, you have again some text. And then finally, you have footer, and then you have a sub footer. And the easiest way in which you can divide the sections of a website is through the use of a division. Now, division is just a logical specifier. Why logical specifier? You're doing it logically, but to actually have it done, you need to allocate some values to it: height, width, left, right, center, alignment, and so forth. Okay. Now, division tags, you can have customized names to it. And finally, the last selector that you have is span. Now, what span does, it allows developers to control inline elements. In other words, if you want to control your HTML tags, okay, and let's say you have multiple tags in one specific line on a web page, so span can be easily used to distinguish them and control it easily. And then the last bullet point over there is responsive web. So responsive web is a sophisticated way of saying that a website should be able to adjust and work the same in any screen type or size. For instance, if I say I'm making a website for FNU, so FNU, and I'm saying FNU's website is responsive. So if I open up the website on a mobile phone screen, let's say Samsung S20 Plus, for example, if I open up in it, so I should be able to use the website very, very efficiently. Functionality remains the same, layout remains the same. It does not go haywire on the screen. On the other hand, if I would use the same website on a laptop screen, again, it's well laid out, it works well, functions well, and the design is as the developer intended to. If I use the same website on a tablet, again, it works well, it doesn't dislocate or misconfigures things on the screen. So everything remains the same. So when we talk about responsive web, basically it's a website or a web application's ability to adjust and work in any particular screen type or screen size. Moving on, in week 3, you looked at XML. The XML, the long form is Extensible Markup Language. Now, XML is very much similar to HTML, but what it does is that it does not come with predefined tags. For example, in HTML, you have bold, B tag, you have italic I, H1, H2, IMG for image, A for anchor or link, and so forth. Okay. Now with XHTML, you use your own defined tags. That means you declare a variable, define it, and then you can use it in the web page. Okay. Moreover, there are rules that developers must adhere to while working with XML. And some of those rules are the new tag that you create, all tags must be nested in the root node. In other words, if I say a root node in terms of HTML, so your opening HTML is opening and closing HTML, that's the root node. Okay. Head tags, opening and closing head tags, that's the sub root node though. Root node rather. And then your body tags, they are another set of root node, sub root node rather. Okay. Let me repeat that. I think I fumbled up. Let me repeat that again. When you are working with HTML, your opening and closing HTML is the root node. Then your head tags, you'll see the indented bit towards the right hand side. Your opening and closing head tags, they are sub root nodes. Okay, and then your body tag is another sub root node. Now with XML, you need to ensure that all tags are nested in the root node, the very first set of root, very first set of tags. And then moreover, your XML is case sensitive. And basically another rule is that you need to ensure that all the tags that you nest in, they need to be set in a specific order or sequence. Another rule that I could just quickly remember with XML is that there are certain characters that are not supported in XML. For example, your open and close brackets, okay? Your smaller than and bigger than signs are not supported in XML. Your apostrophe is not supported in XML. Double quotes is also not supported in XML. Moreover, ampersand sign. Do you know what ampersand sign is? It's like the fancy end. Let's say we say Tom and Jerry. So Tom in the fancy end symbol. Where do you find it? Shift key and 7. Okay, that symbol on the keyboard, that's an ampersand sign. Okay, that is not supported in XML. Do note that. Then you looked at forms in week 3. So what forms do is basically it allows developer to build interactive web pages, and it collects information from the user and processes it and stores it in a server. Okay, so forms are just like when you are signing up to a website, let's say Facebook. Why I'm using Facebook from yesterday, because it's very common, right? Everyone uses it. So when you first must have signed in, so you must have inserted your first name, your last name, your email address, country, and so forth. So that was in a form layout. So that form basically collected data in separate fields and stored it in a database. Now, using the database, what Facebook does, it puts the information somewhere on your dashboard. So on Facebook, when you go to your profile, that's your dashboard. So your information is pulled out from the database and is displayed there. Okay, so that's what forms generally do. Now, form elements include, you have text input, you have checkboxes. Text input is whereby the simple text field that you put in. Checkboxes, okay, you place a tick and you remove the tick. Check in, check off. Okay, select list or a drop down list, for example, country, and then you have a list of countries to select. So those are drop down lists. You have text area. The text area commonly is used in, let's say, comments. You put in a comments, so there's a comment section on a form, and then it gives you certain number of word limitation, and you can put in that much number of words. So that is the work of text area. Radio button, small circular kind of buttons, whether you can, when you click on it, when you select it, it adds a color to it. When you click on it again, it takes a color out of it. So those are radio buttons. And finally, buttons. So you must be aware of buttons. Generally in forms, there are 2 types of buttons. You have a reset, and then you have a submit button. Okay. Now, syntaxes include, so some of the basic syntaxes relating to forms. You have a form syntax. This is an HTML tag, by the way. Okay, and then you have input, for you to input few things. Select certain elements. Input is generally used for text input, by the way, even for checkboxes and radio buttons and buttons as well. Select is where you have a drop-down list. Options, okay. Now options can also be used for radio buttons, by the way. Okay, and then text area is for the text area form element. So that finishes up week 3. So to quickly summarize week 3, okay, know that there are HTML selection techniques. So you use either HTML tag of its own, either IDs, and it's represented by hashtags in CSS. Classes is represented by a period sign in CSS, and division, okay, or div tags. Basically, you can have your own customized names, and then you have span. When you talk about responsive web, that means it is a website's ability to adjust and work the same in any particular screen type or screen size. XML is an extension to the markup language or extensible markup language. It's similar to HTML, but does not have predefined tags. XML has its own defined tags, and there are certain rules that a developer must adhere to while working with XML. For example, all tags must be nested in the root node. Moreover, XML is case sensitive, and XML must nest all tags in a specific order or sequence, and certain characters are not allowed. Example, smaller than sign, bigger than sign, apostrophe, double quotes, ampersand signs. And we also looked at forms. What forms do, it adds interactivity or intuitivity to web pages. Moreover, it collects information from that form or from that particular space, and then from the user, processes it and stores it in a server. So some of the common form elements include text input, checkboxes, checklist, also called as drop-down list, text area, radio buttons, and buttons. And the syntaxes which allow these elements to be inserted in are form, input, select, option, and text area. Now, Week 4 is the last set of things that you need to know. So very quickly, we'll go over that as well. So in week 4, you had covered up PHP, okay? So PHP connects and manipulates databases, okay? So the database that generally you work with using PHP is MySQL, okay? So what PHP does, it is a coding language. It connects to and manipulates. When we talk about manipulate, whereby you can create a database, you can insert tables inside a database. Remember, database is a collection of tables. So when you manipulate database, you are creating tables, you are adding data to tables, you're selecting data from the tables, and then you can manipulate the data in the tables. So these are some of the functionalities that you do using PHP. And MySQL, it is a very popular database system used with PHP. Now, MySQL is generally used with and for web applications, and it is server-based, and the common server generally used on offline basis is XAMPP server, okay? You have XAMPP, you have WAMP, okay? So in XAMPP, you end up using Apache. Moreover, MySQL is fast and reliable. It is free to download and free to use, and it can work in multiple platforms. When you talk about multiple platforms, you can use MySQL in a Windows-based computing system. You can use in Mac OS. You can even use it in Linux. So when you combine PHP and MySQL, and this is the very reason why many people use this, and this is why it is so popular, is because with the combination of PHP and MySQL, it gives out cross-platform capability. When you talk about cross-platform capability, in other words, if you create a website in Windows-based computer system, and then you have a server in Linux, it can work. Okay, if you have something, if you have a website done in Linux and the server connectivity and the work and the coding done in Windows, it will still work. So PHP and MySQL gives a definite amount of cross-platform capability. Now, to allow communication between web page and web server, so this is the very core of backend website development. The front end is HTML and CSS. With HTML, you put up the structure, CSS to style it out. Now, when you're making a static website, HTML and CSS will do the job for you. For example, if you have, or if you plan to make a rental website, rental car website, but it doesn't process payment, you can just do it with HTML and CSS. Let's say it doesn't have a booking system. People would normally, or customers would normally go and book it through a contact form or drop you an email or give you a call through the website. So just using HTML and CSS, you would be able to develop the static website. But if you want to create a website, a rental booking website, and you want to have a booking system with it, moreover, it should be able to process payment. That's where you need database connection. That's where you need a payment processing engine. You also need a booking engine. Now to do that, you need PHP and MySQL. So with PHP and MySQL, it allows communication between a web page and web server. Web page front end, okay, server back end. Now, PHP connection to MySQL needs to be created. So the very first thing you need to do is you need to create a set of codes using PHP to allow connection to MySQL. Okay, and there's and to do that, okay, if you refer to week 13 lecture and slide 6, there's a set of coding, and that's how you will need to connect the server. Okay, now database is a collection of tables should be tables. Okay, so remember, there can be plenty tables in a database. Okay, so first of all, you will go and create a connection to the server. You will create a database, and after you've created a database, you will then go and create tables. Okay, so table is a collection of database. So create database in PHP. So week 13 lecture slide number 9, the code is given in there. Okay, so once you've created the database, then you will go and create table or tables within the database. Okay, let me repeat that. First of all, connection to the server, then you create the database. After you've created a database, you have to go and create tables. Table or tables, depends what you're working on. Okay, so once you've created the tables, now this is in week 13 lecture slide 10. then you need to go and insert data in your tables. So that's week 13, lecture, slide 12, the code is given. And then once you've inserted in the data, then you can go and select and manipulate data. So once you select data, you can remove certain elements, you can add certain elements, you can modify or change the values. Okay, let me repeat the entire process. To actually allow communication between the web page and the web server, first of all, you will need to create a connection to the server. After you have created the connection to the server, you will need to go and create a database. In the database, then you'll use PHP to go and create tables. Once you have done with the tables, you'll then use PHP to insert data within those tables. Upon inserting data, only then using PHP, you would be able to select data from the tables and work on with it. Okay, so that summarizes your week 4. Okay, so quickly, let's go over it. So we have talked about PHP. PHP connects and manipulates databases. So in the databases, you have tables. In the tables, you have data. Okay. Now, MySQL is one of the popular databases used on the web-based interface, and generally it is used with PHP. Okay, it is server-based. So with offline, we use XAMPP server. You can use WAMP, Apache servers, and so forth. Okay, it is fast and reliable. It is free to download and use, and it can be used in multiple platforms. Now, to allow communication between a web page and the web server, you need to create a connection. From the after you've done with the connection, you need to create a database, then create a table within the database. Once you're done, then you can insert data. Then finally, you can go and manipulate data from the table, from the database, and into the server. Okay, now here's the thing. Why I've listed week 13 lecture in slide 6, 9, 10, 12, 14. I will need you to go and have a good look at that. Okay, and then try to figure out whether, I hope that you've covered this in the class in week 4. If not, it's not so difficult. It's pretty simple. Okay, just go and try to figure out and see if you can work with this code. All right, everyone. Okay, so this finishes up the course summary for CIN628 summer. Now, very quickly, I will take you to the Moodle page. Okay, now yesterday's lecture is already uploaded here on Moodle. Okay, it's connected to a YouTube channel. Okay, so I think it should be fast in terms of processing it. Okay, and then there's a lecture-based quiz on Ajax. Now, please note that this does not contribute any marks towards your coursework. It does not have a time limit, and moreover, you will not be penalized if you do not attempt it. It's just for you to test yourself out, whatever you have learned in the lecture, whether you remember it or not. Now, Ajax is not covered in the final exam. This is just a supplementary set of material in CIN628, but it's always good to know about new technology. So that's why you have this lecture, and I hope that most of you have gone through it and you have attempted the quiz. Now, I've already put down the course summary, the lecture slides that I was viewing while I was recording this particular video. Okay, you can always go and access them, and the recording will be coming in straight underneath this. So tomorrow, you'll have 14th of January 2022 coming in, and you'll have the revision questions in there. And I'll try my best to at least discuss all the questions very, very efficiently in tomorrow's 2 hours class. Remember, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. All right, everyone. So I hope that this makes your work a bit easier in terms of you going and revising for your final examination. Okay, final examination, I think few things are there on week 6 online final examination section of the Moodle show, but I will be having a good look at it, and then if there need be, changes will be coming in. All right, everyone. So thank you very much for your time. Okay, I hope that all of you are well. At the same time, you are taking a good care of yourself. Okay, I think you were not able to see this while I was quoting it out. Give me a second, people. Okay, so this is where your lecture note is. Pardon me for that. This is where lecture notes is. Lecture recording is from yesterday, your lecture notes from yesterday's class, and then the quiz and the lecture notes, the course summary lecture recording from today. And the recording will be coming in here as well later before 2 p.m. All right, everyone. So take care, stay safe. I hope to see you all tomorrow in tomorrow's class. Okay, I'm excited to see you all because I've not actually told or seen either of you from the class. So, yep, see you all tomorrow. Take care, stay safe. Please ensure to take out adequate time for your revision. Any questions or queries, just hit me up with an email or drop me a message on Viber or even on Moodle. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much. Goodbye.